good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fiber Broadband Association's Fiber for Breakfast. We're now in our 21st episode of 2025. Before we kick off, I'd like to thank Wesco, the platinum sponsor of Fiber for Breakfast. Well, in Washington this morning, there are two key hearings related to fiber broadband, which will take place in Congress. The House Appropriations Committee will hold an oversight hearing of the FCC with Chairman Carr as their witness. Also in the House, the Subcommittee on Commerce, Manufacturing, and Trade will hold an educational hearing on AI. In preparation, the Fiber Broadband Association has shared our AI and fiber report with the subcommittee. And recently, Senate leaders continue to urge NTI to move quickly as possible on releasing the BEAD funding. U.S. Senator Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia recently sent a letter to U.S. Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick asking for an expedited review and updated guidance for the BEAD program, urging that West Virginia not have to wait on significant revisions to its application. Additionally, a letter from 9 Senate Democrats led by Senator Jackie Rosen of Nevada was sent on Friday to President Trump with a similar request. Further related to BEAD, state broadband offices were notified that the Digital Equity Act fund will be ending immediately. Additionally, top tech leaders, including OpenAI's Sam Altman, appeared before the Senate Commerce Committee. Lawmakers focused on topics such as advancing U.S. global competitiveness in AI, light touch regulations, permitting challenges, and workforce issues. Most notably, Senator Morgan of Kansas noted that rural areas lack sufficient broadband, and AI requires broadband. So we're now just weeks, well, not even weeks, a week and a half away from Fiber Connect 2025 in Nashville, which kicks off on June 1st. And we continue to set new attendance records every year for the past 5 years. And 2025 will be no exception. That's going to be between 5,000 and 6,000 of our closest friends. So if you haven't registered, please go to fiberbroadband.org under events and register today. You're not going to want to miss Fiber Connect 2025. So after the big event in Nashville, we'll continue to work our way around North America. So far, regional workshops in San Antonio and Philly have been sold out. And the next regional workshop will be in Anchorage, Alaska on July 17th. After Anchorage, we'll be in Toronto in August, Spokane in September, Scottsdale in October, Kansas City in November, and Palm Springs will be our premier member meeting December 8th and 9th. Last week I showed this fiber availability map. And David, can you put that map up? And, today we'll be discussing Oklahoma. From a study, Oklahoma had 3.2% fiber in 2013, which increased to 11.6% fiber by 2016 and has greatly improved to 64.2% by 2024. Oklahoma plans to get to 95% fiber by 2028. As of June 2024, Oklahoma had 250,000 unserved and underserved locations, which is about 15% of the families of the state. So today on Fiber for Breakfast, our guest is Mike Sanders, the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Broadband Office, to discuss Fiber Forward, Oklahoma's bold path to statewide connectivity. But before I formally introduce today's guest, I'd like to introduce David Norris from the team who's going to walk us through some housekeeping items.
Thank you very much, Gary, and thank you to everyone who's joined us today. We appreciate it. Before I go over a few logistics, we'd like to just once again thank our platinum sponsor, Fiber for Breakfast, Wesco. Now, please keep in mind, as a participant, you are in listen-only mode today. To ask a question, please type it into the question box, which is located in the lower left-hand side of your screen, and we will have a Q&A session with our panelists at the end of today's presentation. This presentation is also being recorded and will be available on FBA's website within 24 to 48 hours, and you can find that recording in the Events tab under the Fiber for Breakfast drop-down option. Finally, at the conclusion of the presentation today, you'll be prompted to complete a brief feedback survey. Please take a moment to do so. We appreciate your input. With that, I will hand things back over to Gary to get us started. Gary?
Thanks, David, and good morning. I'm Gary Bolton, the President and CEO of the Fiber Broadband Association. Last week on Fiber Breakfast, our guest was Christina Woolston, the CEO of Old Harbor Native Corporation, who discussed Project Nunapet, connecting tribal communities and culture across Kodak Island. Christina outlined the challenging environment for broadband in Alaska, and I'm excited to say the Fiber Broadband Association will be in Alaska on July 17th for our regional Fiber Connect workshop. So we're looking forward to seeing firsthand what's going on in Alaska. Today on Fiber for Breakfast, our guest is Mike Sanders, Executive Director of the Oklahoma Broadband Office, to discuss Fiber Forward, Oklahoma's bold path to statewide connectivity. Mike was appointed as Executive Director of the Oklahoma Broadband Office in March 2023, and under his leadership, the office has expanded its professional team and is focused on achieving efficient operations. Prior to taking this role, he founded and operated his own business, Sanders Strategy and Consulting Group. He also had an impactful political career, serving 6 terms in the Oklahoma House of Representatives, starting in 2008. During his tenure in the House, he led his leadership positions included Chair of the House Utilities Committee and Appropriations and Budget Subcommittee on Transportation. He also served as the House Majority Leader. Prior to his legislative services, Sanders served as the Director of Interns in the White House for President George W. Bush, and he played a key role in revitalizing the White House intern programs. He received the Distinguished Honor Service Award for his dedicated service on September 11, 2001. Sanders continued his public service in the Bush administration with senior management roles at the United States Department of Agriculture. He worked as a senior advisor to the chief of the USDA, Natural Resource Conservation Service, and as a deputy chief of staff in the USDA Rural Development. Sanders earned his undergraduate degree in history and pre-law from Oklahoma Christian University and pursued further studies at Georgetown, where he worked on his master's degree in government. Born and raised in Kingfisher, Sanders resides there with his wife, Nellie, and his sons, Davis and Walker. So welcome, Mike. And for our audience, please type in your questions as you go and work those into the discussion. So, Mike, it's a real pleasure to have you here. So, Mike, given your extensive experience both at the state and national level, I didn't know that it's going to be so critical for your role as a state broadband director. But can you talk a little bit about, how you've been able to lean on your past experience, and even working at USDA and so forth?
Absolutely. And Gary, thank you for having me this morning. I'm looking forward to our chat today. I never thought in a million years that I would have the honor and responsibility and role that I currently have. But I will tell you that it has come as the experience in my past. It's been very valuable to use. I will say that. I've been very blessed in my career. And again, ultimately, I still currently live in rural Oklahoma. I represented 6 wonderful rural Western Oklahoma counties. So I live it, breathe it, and eat it every day. But I will tell you, working in Washington gave me vast experience to learn firsthand the connectivity issues that we have in our state, and quite frankly, the country, because we've been talking about lack thereof connectivity for decades. This is not an entity or an issue that has just come to light over the last 5 years. But I will also share that experience really helped me navigate through the state legislature, dealing with utilities when I was chair of that committee, certain issues that were very important to internet service providers. So it has helped me. It has helped my team navigating some of these pitfalls and these potholes, you could say, as we navigate this very dicey move in the world of broadband.
Well, listen, Oklahoma has a very aggressive plan to get to 95% fiber. You're leveraging a number of opportunities, the American Rescue Plan, the Capital Projects Fund, and then hopefully we'll see some BEAD money at some point. What do you have to do to get to 95%? And that's a short period of time. It's halfway through 2025 to be able to get there by 2028.
Absolutely. And so let me kind of start backwards and then we'll move forward. Our legislature wanted our office here at the Oklahoma Broadband Office to make sure that we get to 95% connectivity when this program or when this office goes away in 3 years. We'll be north of that, but it's going to take all the other federal programs and the flexibility for our state to achieve that. And I can get into that a little bit later in the conversation. But we have taken a bold, very aggressive steps to make sure that we do that. And I think flexibility has a lot to do with that, because when you look at the amount of money that we have to spend, we will get close to that 95%. But I think when you look at the other monies that are involved in that space, in the broadband space with USDA reconnect monies, the FCC monies with enhanced ACAM, the NTIA tribal monies, sometimes people forget, Oklahoma has 39 nationally recognized tribal nations. So we have that component. And then, of course, the past history of RDOF and other programs. We will get to that 95. In fact, like I said, we will get over that, but it's going to take every one of us, all these programs, working hand in hand to make sure that we do that. But again, at the end of the day, our goal is to take care of those unserved and underserved Oklahomans. We believe our program is a step in the absolute right direction, but we will need others to join. And it's amazing what happens when we can build a coalition, which we've done, to make sure that we reach that goal and actually exceed that goal. As long as I'm sitting in this chair, Gary, I plan to exceed that goal.
So given your past experience in the White House and then as a state legislator, what do we need to do to help Washington understand that the state broadband directors intimately know your budget, every location, your topology, and the families you're trying to serve? I mean, I can't imagine anybody being in a better position to make the right choices.
You are 1,000% right. And it all starts with open communication. I will tell you what Oklahoma has done. We have communicated clearly and effectively with our federal delegation, number one. We communicate on a very regular basis, either through Teams meetings, or if I have to make a trip to Washington, I will do that, letting them know what our budget is, letting them know that we're limited. Here are our successes. Here are things that we would love to see from the new administration. And every new administration, when you come into a situation like this, should have an opportunity to review all policies from a previous administration. But we've been waiting for BEAD and this broadband expansion for a long, long time. And I would hate to see more delays. But back to what we were saying a second ago, I think open communication is paramount. We've also set up meetings with the new administration, some of the folks at NTIA, some of the folks at Commerce. Obviously, NTIA is underneath Commerce. But again, it's about relationships. Everything that we do, Gary, you know this better than anybody. Past experiences, past lives, those type of relationships help us get inside the door, get inside the office to have those conversations. And here's the deal. We have the expertise, if you will, but we're going to need folks like you and other folks in this broadband space to make sure that we can articulate correctly. But it all boils down to communication. And then ultimately, our goal in that communication is to make sure that the new administration and our federal delegation understand that with our monies that we have, we know the state better than anybody. Most people don't realize that Oklahoma has 10 different types of terrain in our 77 counties, plus our tribal nations that we work with hand in hand. So again, education, communication are key, but flexibility is what we're wanting, the outgrowth of those meetings that we have and will have. We want to make sure that they know, my team and I know what's best. And again, don't mind the parameters being set. I think there needs to be parameters being set, absolutely. But again, giving us the flexibility to apply our expertise is what's going to get us north of 95% and closer to that 100% connectivity, which is the whole premise and the DNA or inside the DNA of BEAD. So again, we're looking forward to having those continued conversations because it's critical. I am beholden to the taxpayer. I'm also beholden to the folks here in rural Oklahoma that have been waiting decades to have the opportunity to be connected. I think we owe it to them. And as long as I'm sitting in this chair, that is my goal to achieve that. So
let's just kind of drill down on BEAD. Where are you? You guys are just wrapping up your application window this week?
It'll be a week from today, 11:59 p.m. on Memorial Day. We will conclude that. We've had our application process open for nearly a month. What I really, really like is how we did things. Playing a role in this overall fix. So before we were able to submit our final proposal, draft one, if you will, we were able to include alternative types. We wrote that into our plan. So that's something that I saw, my team saw, and I think that has given us the flexibility that once plans are reviewed and the overall BEAD strategy is reviewed, I think we fit nicely into that. But I will say that Oklahoma, our preference again has always been fiber. I'm not out to use other technologies against other technologies because I ultimately believe it's going to take every one of us. It's going to take the fixed wireless and the unlicensed fixed wireless, and I think there is a role for LEO to be at the table. Our preference, of course, is fiber, but again, you're only limited to so much money. So I think if all of us can get in a room and continue to build a coalition and understand that unserved and unserved Oklahomans are our customers, that's what we have to do, and we have to make sure that we do it on time, which is another critical issue that I'm hopeful that the dates can be moved back to allow companies the opportunity to build and go through some of this permitting process, which I hope some of that gets fixed in the pause for BEAD. But again, there's a lot of moving parts, but we're ultimately wanting to make sure that Oklahomans can decide what's best for Oklahoma, not perhaps bureaucrats in Washington, D.C.
So, I mean, I know we haven't seen guidance yet from whatever revisions NTI may or may not want to put in, but it appears that non-deployment funds is some concerns, although middle mile and workforce development are both highly supported by the new administration, and those are eligible expenses. Have you guys kind of shifted how you think about non-deployment if you have any funds available?
We have, and I'm glad you brought up middle mile, because through our ARPA state and local fiscal recovery fund monies that were announced over a year ago, we had some companies who decided not to go forward. So we were able to reallocate that money. And just last week, this is perfect timing, Gary, just last week, we were able to announce over $53 million in middle mile projects that went to 5 internet service companies in 19 different locations. So we were really, really proud and honored that we were able to do that, because I don't think there's anyone in the industry that would be opposed to that, because that ultimately leads to better last mile connectivity and enforces and builds up our last mile connections. So we've been very thoughtful, very forward thinking on that. And I know there's a lot of talk and about using non-deployment monies. We've already started that, and I think the administration will be very happy with the results that we here in Oklahoma have carried on and carried through.
So obviously Oklahoma is pretty famous for its weather.
To say the least.
Yeah, so I think they have a few movies about that. But it's so is it your cost of deployment higher than other states? Or I mean, what do you have to take? Do you try to bury your facilities, or how are you prioritizing to make sure you have strong resiliency?
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with so far of the programs that we've been very honored and blessed to get out the door, obviously our ARPA monies. And I got to give a lot of credit to our legislature here in Oklahoma because they had the foresight to use ARPA monies, both the Capital Projects Fund as well as the state and local fiscal recovery funds, and dedicate over $500 million of that into broadband infrastructure last mile projects. Of those projects, 80% are fiber. 80% are fiber. The other 20% is fixed wireless. We know with the tornadoes, we know with the wind, putting that infrastructure conduit into the ground is by far the best. Yes, it is expensive. However, you get sometimes what you pay for. And if you are able to put that infrastructure into the ground, that protects you from, 70-mile-an-hour wind on, just a regular old day here in Oklahoma, or tornadoes, or some of the massive forest fires that we have had here in the state. It protects from the towers, or perhaps if you have aerial fiber, because a lot of telephone poles on those pole attachments are wood, and those burn pretty easily when you have 60-foot, 70-foot flames from a wildfire. So, our emphasis has been, and our companies here in Oklahoma know that, and they have predominantly put that in the ground, and it lasts longer. And that's another reason why I think when you're looking at building this out and the cost of it has been tornadoes, fire, and ice. I almost forgot about, the ice storms that we've had here in Oklahoma. You put all that in the ground, you avoid all that. And again, when you think about a public safety standpoint, from a communication standpoint, those are areas of critical concern. And our team has put that thought into wanting to make sure that our fiber is buried as opposed to not being buried.
So, obviously the other thing that's different about Oklahoma than other states is the number of tribes. Can you talk a little bit about the coordination and then how people are are going to be bidding on BEAD awards, how they're leveraging, because you can eliminate the match, right, if you put tribal locations into your. Correct.
Yes, and that's what we've done. That's what we've done here in Oklahoma. And one of the great things, Gary, is that Oklahoma. If you look at the breakout of our state's name, it's land of the red man, and we're very proud of our Native American heritage and the 39 tribes that call Oklahoma home. And one of the first things that we did here was to hire a coordinator that coordinates all of the different meetings that go into our final proposal, meeting with our tribal nations and letting them know of our programs moving forward. And I can tell you that we know that there's going to be some great applications. 2/3 of Oklahoma land are tribal lands. And so again, when you look at that and look at the makeup of our state, we are absolutely wanting to make sure that we have a great partnership, and we do have a great partnership with all of our tribes, and gone across the state meeting with those wonderful folks. And one of the things that I think is critical, they have to be part of this discussion. They have been. We've had meetings throughout the state. We've had seminars, webinars, you name it. It is interesting because this is something that a lot of states, they don't have a lot of tribal partners. We have, and we have opened up that door, and our coordinator's done a fabulous job in answering questions, holding their hand, because this is something entirely brand new for not only our tribal nations, but for everybody, right? So we've been very, very forward thinking on making sure that our tribal partners have a seat at our table. because after all, the only way that we're going to be able to get and pass or surpass our 95% connectivity here in the state of Oklahoma is to make sure that they're involved. They will be. Past experiences has proven that. When we announced our middle mile projects last week, we had several of our grants go to a tribal nation. So we're excited. We know that it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of time. But anything worthwhile in life, I have learned in past experiences, is putting the time in and working with our tribal partners.
So, I mean, I know it's kind of an awkward time right now for broadband directors when there's supposed to be some kind of revision to the plans and you're having to operate from the plans you know. How do you anticipate, is it just going to be lucky that the timing you have that you should know revisions before you're ready to submit your final proposal? Or do you, I mean, can you handicap how things are going to play out for Oklahoma?
Well, I tell you what, Gary, if I knew that answer, you and I would be in Vegas tonight. But I will say this, and kidding aside, you know, I think just looking at it from a political prism, we've been lucky here in Oklahoma that with our previous monies here with our ARPA, State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, our Middle Mile Project, and our Capital Projects Funds, we've been able to get those out the door. Construction on all of those projects, excluding Middle Mile, is 73%. 73% of those projects are underway, the 180. Workforce, we've been able to get folks, keep those folks, or we'll be able to keep those folks here once BEAD is released. A lot of this is hedging bets, I guess, is the best way to do that, but also understanding what the political tea leaves are saying. You know, we haven't been so staunch, stubborn that it's going to be one way or the other, because at the end of the day, we will get our marching orders and we will march. But hopefully, the way that we have written our proposal will be great for the administration, the new administration. I think they will see that we have and have included everybody to be at the table. It is frustrating, I know, for folks that have been waiting for a long time to get high-speed internet, as we've gone around the state the last 2 years telling folks that it's going to be here or it's coming. I hope that the 90-day pause only stays 90 days, because for Oklahoma, that puts us to the end of October. We want to get shovels in the ground now. We want to put our workforce, Oklahoma workforce, behind those particular projects. We want to keep those jobs here. We want to make sure that we not only are ahead of the curve, but also want to make sure, if the timelines don't change, that we meet everything on time and on budget. So, you know, reading the tea leaves, having open communication with the new administration, I think is key. You know, I have to say that they've been very good to work with from our standpoint, and you know, we just got to continue to keep moving the can down the road, because we don't have time. Time is of the essence, and time is not on our side, especially if they don't move that scale back. So, you know, we've got to continue to work and move forward. Some states have paused. Some states have been told to pause. You know, we've been moving ahead. I think that's what we have to do, because at the end of the day, we're beholden to the taxpayers of this state and this country.
Well, Mike, thank you for everything, your service and everything you do for the state of Oklahoma. Excited for you guys. Looking for you to get that go surpass your 95% target. I know you'll be able to do that. And look forward to seeing you in Nashville here in a week or so.
Yes.
I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and look forward to getting back together next Wednesday. We're going to be with Juliet Fink Yates, the Broadband Infrastructure and Digital Inclusion Manager for the City of Philadelphia. is going to discuss the Phil Connect Ed program and the city's digital navigator network. So we'll see you guys. Well, I guess that's in 2 weeks. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thanks.